Hi everyone. Today we're going to be talking about portion control. So, why does portion control matter? So, when people think of portion control, they probably link that to managing our weight, looking to lose weight by eating smaller portions. And that is one reason why we want to have portion control if we are looking to make changes with our weight. But even if you are not looking to lose weight, portion control of certain foods still does matter. And that's because when you have heart disease, you want to be lowering your intake of sodium and saturated fat. So, if you are eating large portions of foods that are high in these nutrients, you could be having too much, and that could be impacting your heart health. For example, let's take a look at the beloved food of cheese. So, an ounce and a half of cheddar cheese is about the size of three dice, and three dice worth of cheese packs 9 grams of saturated fat and 264 milligrams of sodium. Now, to put that into perspective, you all should be aiming to have less than 15 grams of saturated fat per day and around 1,500 to 2,300 milligrams of sodium. So even if you just ate three dice worth of cheese, you're almost getting two-thirds a day of saturated fat. But I choose cheese as an example because this is something that we typically might have a large portion size of. If you look at the platters here, these might look familiar. You go to a party, there's a cheese plate, you might end up eating six dice, nine dice, who knows, especially if you're hanging around in the kitchen and kind of mindlessly munching on the cheese. So, regardless of your weight goals, having too much of the cheddar cheese is going to impact your heart health. So, thus, portion control is important for everyone. So, what should our portions of animal foods look like? Typically, Americans are eating large portions of animal foods, and that is contributing to excessive saturated fat intake. So, the recommendations for animal proteins is to have 6 ounces or less per day, and that's of a cooked amount. But that's 6 ounces or less per day, not per meal. So you might have 3 ounces cooked at lunch, 3 ounces cooked at dinner, and that would be an appropriate portion. However, some people might be having 6 ounces at each meal, or they might be having a 12-ounce steak. So reducing our portions of animal foods is going to be critical for our overall health. So, what does 3 ounces of an animal protein look like? It looks like about the size of a deck of cards. So, what you can see on the screen here would be 3 ounces of chicken, 3 ounces of a beef. That's 6 ounces per day. And of course, we want to be reducing our red meat intake and focusing mostly on plant based proteins, poultry, and seafood. Portion sizes in America have really escalated over the past few decades. And one of the reasons for that is because what we are serving our food on has become bigger. So our plates are bigger than they used to be. An average dinner size plate in 1960 was about 9 inches, and an average dinner size plate in 2009 was 12 inches. So one of the strategies we can do to reduce our portion sizes is going back to that 9 inch plate because we're going to serve ourselves less on a smaller plate. So here are four different size plates, and they all have the same amount of food. And what you can see is that when you put that food on the smaller plate, it's going to fill up more of the plate. So it's going to look more satisfying to our brain. And also, we can't put more food on it because the plate is already full. But when you look at the 11-inch plate and the 12-inch plate, there's a lot of white space around the food. So it doesn't look as satisfying. And we would think, oh, look at all this extra room on the plate. I need to put more food on it. So that's what happens when we have bigger plates. We tend to fill them up and then we finish the plate. So here's another example using a different meal, the same amount of food on each plate, but it looks like less food on the bigger plate, and you may serve yourself more. The Food and Brand Lab out of Cornell University does a lot of research into human behavior around eating. And what they found is that we will eat 92% of what is served at our meal. So if we're given a large plate with a large amount of food, we're going to eat 92% of it. It doesn't matter if we're full, that's just what we're going to do. So using smaller plates will help us to serve less, and then that will directly allow us to eat less. This graphic here displays how portion size have increased from 20 years ago. And as a result, Americans weigh more now than we did 20 years ago. And we're also less active now than we were 20 years ago. So it's kind of a perfect storm for what we call this obesogenic environment. So you'll see, if you ordered a cheeseburger 20 years ago, you'd be given a smaller burger. Now you'd be given an almost 600 calorie burger, which is a 257 calorie difference. But we're not making up that difference in our physical activity. We're actually less active. So over time, we're just not able to handle these larger portions and we are gaining weight. Another example I just want to point out is muffins. 20 years ago, the muffins were much smaller, and now those muffins would be considered a mini muffin. And the muffin you get, at the Dunkin' Donuts drive-through is going to be about 500 calories, and it's going to be worth almost 5 slices of bread. So portions have really, really increased over time. If you're really looking to cut down on your portion sizes, then the most accurate way to determine the portion that you're eating is to use measuring devices. So, a food scale can be used for weighing meats and proteins, measuring cups can be used for weighing grains, measuring spoons can be used for weighing fats, and then, of course, a liquid measuring cup. Now, this doesn't work for everybody. It's not something that everybody is looking to do as it is labor intensive, but I'm just showing you that if your specific goals are to cut down on the portions of certain foods, the most accurate way to do that is to use measuring devices. We can also use our hand to estimate portion sizes. It's not going to be as accurate as measuring, but it is a more convenient option. So, using the palm of our hand, that's about 3 ounces. Using our fist, that's about a cup. The top fingertip is about a teaspoon. Our thumb is about an ounce, and a cupped hand is about a half cup. For estimating portions, we can also use objects that you might have around your house. For example, a baseball is about a cup, a light bulb is about a half cup, a golf ball is about 2 tablespoons, a poker chip is about a tablespoon, a deck of cards is about 3 ounces, a checkbook is about 3 ounces of fish, an ounce of a deli meat is like a CD, a hockey puck is about 3 ounces of a biscuit, and 3 dice equals an ounce and a half of cheese. So let's look at some real examples next to food. So 3 ounces of tofu is about the size of a cassette tape. So if any of you still have a cassette tape at home, I would be very impressed. But tofu is a great option for a plant-based protein. And then for our animal proteins, 3 ounce meatloaf, 3 ounce chicken, about the size of a deck of cards, 3 ounces of fish, about the size of a checkbook. And here are some starches. So a cup of cereal about the size of a baseball, half cup of cooked rice, a light bulb, half cup of cooked pasta, a hockey puck, a small baked potato, a computer mouse, and 1 ear of corn being an 8-inch pencil. Now, depending on your specific health goals, you might be able to have multiple servings or multiple portions, but we're just showing you how you could estimate. So if you wanted to have a cup of rice at the meal, then that would be 2 light bulbs. If you want to have a cup of pasta, that would be 2 hockey pucks. But this just allows you to understand how much you're putting on your plate, and then you can decide if that aligns with your health goals. Now for some fun foods. A 6-inch sub is about the size of a checkbook. A slice of pizza is about the size of $2 bills. One serving of fruit is about the size of a baseball or a tennis ball, or if it's dried fruit, it's the size of a golf ball. Now, for some foods that are a little bit higher in fat, especially saturated fat, being the ice cream, half cup being a light bulb, tablespoon of mayonnaise or tablespoon of butter being about the size of a poker chip. Again, with the dice for the cheese, an ounce and a half of cheese is 3 dice, and a 2 ounce cinnamon roll is again a hockey puck. However, if all else fails, the most basic way to control our portions is to use the plate method. So, half a plate should be non starchy vegetables, a quarter plate should be your protein, and that typically fits about 3 ounces if you're using a 9-inch plate. And then a quarter of the plate should be some type of healthy starch, like a whole grain or a starchy vegetable. Another great way to control our portions is to buy items that are already in a single size portion. So, foods that we might be apt to overindulge on, it's great to buy them in these sizes, like individual hummus cups or guacamole cups, the small little packages of peanut butter or nuts, a small package of cheese versus eating from a block of cheese, a small bag of popcorn versus eating from a big bag of popcorn. These are great options that help us to control our portion. So the typical portion of nuts that we need to get the health benefit, but without overdoing it, is about a quarter of a cup. But it's kind of cool to think of it in terms of a sticky note or a baby food jar or a shot glass. These are items you might have around your house and can help you to portion out your nuts. You can also buy different devices that help with portion control, such as little Tupperware containers, plates that are already divided up, like the plate method, or Ziploc bags that have measurements on the side of them. This product is called Meal Measure. It's available on Amazon. It's basically like a stencil or template you put on your plate, then you put the food in it and you take it off. There are also ways that we can set up our environment for success and set up our kitchen in our house in a way that is conducive to portion control. And one of these things you can do is to leave a measuring cup in your cereal container and use that as the scoop for your cereal. You can also switch to smaller plates, bowls, and glasses. When you're serving yourself into a smaller plate or bowl, you're going to automatically serve yourself less and therefore you'll eat less. Avoid eating out of large containers, boxes, or bags. Look at the scenario here. Which option is going to help you control your portion size? Eating out of a large gallon of ice cream or eating an individual Greek yogurt ice cream pop? When you finish it, you're done. Versus eating out of a large container of ice cream, it's hard to determine when you're done and it can seem like a bottomless pit. So help yourself out and avoid those large containers. Pack up your leftovers before you sit down to eat. If you have platters of food right in the center of the table, you're more apt to go for seconds, even though you might not really need it. So put those leftovers away, and then if you're genuinely hungry, you'll make the effort to reheat them. But if you were just going for seconds because you saw the food in front of you, this will be prevented. So here we have a typical bottle of soda, which is 20 ounces. And 20 years ago, the portion of soda that people would take would be maybe 12 ounces. So the size of sugar sweetened beverages has really gone up, and this has caused Americans to consume too much added sugar. This 20-ounce bottle has 65 grams of sugar, which is equivalent to 16 packets of white table sugar. Let's talk about muffins. Many people think that a blueberry muffin is a great breakfast option, but really it's like eating an individual piece of cake. This blueberry muffin has 460 calories, 77 grams of carbohydrate, and of those carbs, 44 are grams of sugar and 15 grams of fat. So, eating this muffin for breakfast is equivalent to sitting down and eating 2 slices of bread, 12 packets of table sugar, and 3 teaspoons of oil. How about a bagel? So, a lot of people think that a bagel is equivalent to two slices of bread because we cut it in two, right? But a bagel is actually the same portion as four slices of bread. Actually, four slices of bread and one packet of sugar and 1 teaspoon of fat. And then if we put cream cheese on the bagel, it still is the same amount of carbohydrates and sugar, but the fat content multiplies by three. What about three slices of a large pepperoni pizza? Well, this is going to pack 900 calories, 37 and a half grams of fat, 36 grams of protein, and 102 grams of carbs. So that's equivalent to having seven slices of bread, 7 teaspoons of oil, and 6 ounces of chicken. So, where can you turn to next if you want to work on your portion control? These are different resources you can find online from WebMD, MyPlate, the NIH, the CDC, and Mayo Clinic. And as always, do the best you can, take it one day at a time. Try to pick out one aspect of your day and your eating pattern to target, work on that first, and then continue from there. You got this.